To introducing our next speaker, who is an assistant director at United Nations University's Institute for Water, Environment and Health, and is university professor emeritus at University of Windsor, Canada, educated at University of Toronto and University of Hawaii. His research into ecology of coral reefs spanned a career at University of Sydney, University of New Hampshire, and University of Windsor. He now lives with his wife, Donna, in the Muskoka region, north of Toronto, for those people watching online, while leading projects applying science to coastal marine management in tropical regions around the world. His recent book, Our Dying Planet, tells the story of our impacts on the environment from the perspective of an ecologist who has seen environmental decline with his own eyes. It provides a compelling explanation of why we have to make some serious changes if we want to live a sustainable future. TEDx fans, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Peter Sale.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? This is the title. This is what I'm supposed to be talking about. This could be a real downer. You've just been entertained, you're uplifted, and now I'm going to depress you. But I'm going to try not to. I'm going to focus on what's possible rather than focus on how bad it is that we're in the worst environmental crisis humanity has seen since the Pleistocene, which was pretty bad. So let me see what I can do. I'm going to try and tell the story of how we can get out of this thing with three images. First, some smiling children. Second, some hockey sticks, because it's Canada. And third, some footprints. In this case, footprints in the snow outside my house 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to somehow take those three images and bring them together and make sense of them. So wish me luck. Before I start, we need to look at a famous photograph. This is a photograph you've all seen before. As half the people on Earth have never known a time when this photograph did not exist. This photograph was taken in 1968, and those of us who were around in 1968 can still remember when Apollo 8 went behind the moon on its first orbit, taking the first 3 people round to the other side of the moon. And when they came out from behind the moon, they saw the Earth rising in the sky of the moon, and they had the forethought to grab the camera and take the photograph. And it's been reproduced over and over again. This is real. It was taken on a Hasselblad. It was taken on film. It isn't a creation from Pixar. It isn't somebody's imagination. This is what they saw. And it tells us 3 really amazing things about where we live. First of all, it's stunningly beautiful. It's unlike any of the other planets. It's gorgeous. We're really lucky to be here. Secondly, it's lonely. It's the only one like it in our part of the universe. It's the only one that we could get to in any conceivable period of time in a spaceship that's like this. And then thirdly, it's finite. It's a certain size. It can provide a certain number of things for us to use, but that's it. It's not growing, and there isn't another one nearby. Think about that as we go back to talk about these children. They're smiling. I don't know why they're smiling. They might just be smiling because they're having their picture taken, or it's a sunny day, or school got canceled, but they're happy. And children who are happy are something that we want. And I think if we're talking about what's possible with respect to the environmental crisis, we're also permitted to make some judgments and say what is desirable. We want a future where children are smiling, as opposed to a future where they're not. Keep that in mind as well. Now the hockey sticks. In truth, I'm not actually going to talk about hockey or hockey sticks. I'm going to talk about the shape of a hockey stick. long horizontal shaft, and then a rapidly upwardly swooping blade. That shape appears time and time again in the data when we talk about the environmental crisis. Now, here's the first time it appeared in the context of the environmental crisis. This was a report in 2003 from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And it's a graph that shows the temperature of the northern hemisphere for the last 1,000 years. It actually was first published by Professor Michael Mann at Penn State in 1998. It was then picked up by IPCC and used in their report. And what it shows is the temperature of the northern hemisphere was more or less constant. There's a lot of wiggling there, but it was more or less constant for a long time. And then in recent years, it's gone shooting up. Somebody seeing this graph said, oh, it's a hockey stick curve, which tells you immediately that that somebody had never seen a real hockey stick. And secondly, that scientists have really good imaginations. It's a very squiggly shafted hockey stick, but it has that long period of relative constancy and then this sudden increase. That long period is 1,000 years long, and the upward bit starts about 1850. Now, there's lots of other hockey sticks, as I said. Michael Mann published in 2003 a bunch where he was able to take temperature records back 2,000 years. And there's still hockey sticks with those squiggly shafts and then the upwardly swooping thing at the end. Something happened. Climate before 1850 is different. For 1,000 years, 2,000 years before 1850 is different to climate since 1850. Before, stable, now changing rapidly. And those of you who are outside this morning getting here know what I'm talking about. More hockey sticks. Here are concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. You all know that greenhouse gases trap heat, and that's why the world is warming up. Here are CO2 in the upper left, methane, lower left, and nitrous oxide in the right. We put all of these things into our atmosphere. These graphs go back 10,000 years. 10,000 years of relative constancy, and then whoops, the blade of the hockey stick shooting up. And it's happening to all three of them, and our world's getting warmer. And of course, these are related to our use of fuel, which is another hockey stick. Now this one, they chopped off the shaft. It's for a midget. So it's only in 1830 back when it started, but you see the same trend, and if we extended it back, you know that we weren't using large amounts of energy 500 or 600 or 1,000 years ago. So it's a long shaft, and then this rapid increase. This one is broken down in terms of which kinds of energy we use, and you'll see that the increase is mostly in coal, oil, natural gas, the fossil fuels, the ones that produce the greenhouse gases which produce the warming. So all these hockey sticks are tied together. And of course, there's the granddaddy of them all, our population. It's another hockey stick. This one goes back 1 million years. We've been on Earth about 2 million years. And you could extend it another million if you want. It would be down close to the bottom of the graph. But somewhere in the 1700s or so, our population starts to grow rapidly. It's been growing more and more rapidly. This year we reached, or last year we reached, 7 billion people on the planet. That's about where the horizontal line is on that graph, because unlike all the other hockey sticks I've showed you, this one predicts the future. Now, I happen to think it's an absurdly optimistic prediction, because it has us going up and up and up to 2100 and then magically leveling off. Duh. Why would that happen? I have no idea. I don't think that's a realistic future. But throw away the prediction and just look at the hockey stick part. It fits with all the others. There are lots of other hockey sticks I could show you. The rate at which we are losing species is unparalleled since the Cretaceous. The rate of loss of sea ice in the Arctic, you know it's getting faster and faster, and it has started relatively recently. The rate of change of pH in the ocean. You see, of all the CO2 we put into the atmosphere, about a third of it dissolves promptly in the ocean, which actually prevents the world heating up even faster. But in dissolving in the ocean, it dissociates, produces carbonic acid. The ocean becomes a little bit more acidic. And if you know your pH scale, you know the pH is getting lower. In other words, that's a hockey stick with the blade pointing down. It's been constant for a long period of time. Now it's going down. All of these things are having important ramifications for the way the world functions. Now the footsteps. If you think of our impacts on the world, there's all kinds of impacts. There's impacts on the climate, there's impacts on the supply of food, the fish that we take, the forests that we use, all these impacts, the fuels we use. We can put all those impacts together and think of them as our footprint on the world. We've got this big footprint and we're stomping down on the world. Our footprint has been growing with that hockey stick curve. We're becoming more numerous, and on top of that, standards of living are rising in many places, which is basically a good thing. Standards of living in China, India, Brazil in particular, are currently going up rapidly. When people have higher standards of living, they use more stuff. So our footprint on the world is changing. Well, environmental scientists saw a way of using this concept of the footprint as a way of measuring our different impacts and putting them all together with one kind of scale. So we think in terms of the amount of the Earth that is needed to produce the particular things we're using, or to get rid of the particular pollutants we're producing. And the total area of all our uses equals our footprint. And the bigger the footprint, the bigger the impact. And so here's a graph of the human footprint on the Earth, starting in 1961, finishing in 2006. It's going up and up and up. And notice that nearly horizontal line across the graph labeled biocapacity. That's how much the Earth produces per year. That's the Earth's capacity to support things like us. And so in 1961, we were using less than the world produces. That's good. 2006, not so good. And we can look at this graphically. 1961, we used 62% of the biocapacity. About 1980, we were using 100%. Now, 140%. 2050, well, I've drawn it as 300%. It might be 300, it might be 200. It's probably not going to be less than 140. Ever since 1980, we have been dipping into the capital. We have been using the stored up production. I think it's time to go back to this. Remember, it was finite, you know? Anybody heard of uncontrolled credit card debt? Or national debt? Or default in Greece? You know what it's like when your credit card gets bigger and bigger and bigger and you reach the point where you literally can no longer pay it off? Well, the only problem with this particular debt is we only have one planet. And when we've used it all up, where do we borrow from? Who comes along to bail us out? The hockey sticks are going to have to be brought under control. In fact, we can say not what is possible, but what is absolutely necessary. The hockey sticks will be brought under control. The swooping upward blade will get bent down and hopefully down below horizontal to bring us back into balance. And I like this quotation because Kenneth Boulding was a good economist, but he was actually one who understood. And there's too many people out there, not just economists, there are too many people out there who don't understand that perpetual growth is impossible in a finite universe. So where does that leave us and the smiling children? If we want to talk about a future, we know that that future involves flattening out those hockey sticks. We want to do it in a way that will have smiling children. We need to take our footprint and make it smaller. And there are many different ways we can do that. Many futures are possible. We'll only get one of them. We don't know which one, but many are possible. Unfortunately, most of them are bad. These are the futures where we go along the way we're currently going along, assuming that it doesn't really matter and somebody will figure it out eventually, and we'd better mine the tar sands while we're at it. And if we persist in continuing to assume that we can use more than the Earth provides year after year after year, then the hockey sticks will still be flattened out, and they'll be flattened out by those good old four horsemen: famine, pestilence, war, death. Lovely. No smiling children. Sorry. But there are some good futures out there. Ones where we take control, where we say we have got to take care of those increases, we have got to bring our use of the Earth back into control and still maintain a rich, nurturing, but green civilization. Then we can have smiling children. And so, when it comes down to what's possible, if we want smiling children, we've got to change our behavior in several ways. We've got to do it soon. In fact, we should have done it last year or the year before. But we can still do that while building a sophisticated, technologically advanced, fun, exuberant, vibrant, wonderful civilization, but it just has to be one that treads more gently on the Earth, and along the way we better learn how to care for this lovely, lonely planet. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
It's talks like that I hope a lot of students are listening, and talks like that will inspire them to get into environmental science, environmental studies. And
We clearly need to make some changes in the world. But it is possible, and that's the theme of today.